Hey gang, it's episode 4 on our adventure to the south, ending up in Texas. And we find ourselves in Mena, small town right by Oklahoma, right by the border over there. Anyway, we are here to talk about a story that relates to the circus. The circus actually of the 1950s, and a tragedy that happened right here as the circus was traveling through town. These small circuses were going to take a walk to a 9-year-old girl's grave, and I'll tell you the story. We're going to start out here at the old part of the cemetery and transverse to the south where she is located. And you see the wrought iron fencing. There's a lot of graves like that here. Very intriguing place. And a nice little town driving through. So the story, the circus just generally was a pretty important form of entertainment in this country, especially going all the way back to the 1800s. And it's towns like this, these little towns back then, that the little circuses would perform before the big circuses would get here. I mean, they would travel by truck. The big circuses more relied on when the trains came. And basically, one of the smaller bands was called the Campa Brothers Circus, and they were from Texas. And it was on Tuesday evening, the day before Halloween, October 30th of 1951, as they were finishing their tour in fall here in western Arkansas prior to returning to Texas, which is where they lived, and in the winter they would hang out there. Well, a really terrible thing happened on that day. As they were performing, tragedy had struck when a 9-year-old girl, the girl I was referring to, she was of Mexican descent. She was a tightrope performer, and she was fatally chewed up and clawed by a half-grown lion cub in the circus. Her name was Maria De Campa. Of course, the news spread very quickly, and the newspapers got right on top of it to report the chilling news. Like, it really started here with the Mena Star newspaper. I'll give you a little quote. Sheriff Hobart Hensley, who was attending the night showing, heard the scream of a girl outside the main tent. He ran out, he investigated, and had found that the lion had dragged the little girl under a truck and had the back of her neck in his mouth. Circus attendants beat the animal with clubs and poles, but the girl was not released until the lion trainer came and forced the brute's mouth open with a stick. Well, little Maria was rushed to the Polk County Memorial Hospital, and sadly she died about a half an hour later. Maria was the daughter of the tightrope performers, and I have to tell you, there's some conflicting information I did a lot of research, and I'm not sure who her mother was, and maybe you all can do a little research and help find out. And even Deb and we checked, but there was the grandmother who was put in charge of watching her with the circus, or that was her mom, or there was a woman who lived in Mexico that went by a different name that was her mom. And of course I got the old newspaper article, thanks Deb, and it's just conflicting information. I mean, the newspapers got a lot of stuff wrong back in those days, but the woman, the mother, was Bertha Campa Flores at first reports, and she had 12 kids, and they were in the circus, and they were part owners in this circus. Or the mother was Maria Castro Plata, which is referenced in the newspaper article I'll show you right here. And like I said, it says she wasn't informed of the death for a while, but anyway, moving on with the story. Maria's funeral was held the next morning right here in this town, and it was at St. Agnes Catholic Church. And quoting again from the local newspaper, although the family was not acquainted in Mena, much interest was shown by local residents who sent flowers and attended the funeral service. And of course, they were here at the cemetery to bury her. Now, before the funeral had even started, most of the circus, they had packed up and they departed for the next gig. A place called Mount Ida. I drove through Mount Ida on the way here, and some of these other little towns we'll talk about. And they were scheduled to perform the next night there, but bad news for the circus owner and the business manager, because they were both held back. So you got to stay here. They were charged with negligent homicide by the police or the sheriff. However, it was established that the lion had not been running loose as everyone first reported. And in fact, it was chained to a truck, which, you know, as you think about it, I still think that's, you know, in my opinion, that's negligence. Because, you know, imagine, I mean, it was a half-grown lion, but very dangerous, and it's chained to the truck. And anybody who, and maybe it didn't show aggressive tendencies, but I don't know. Anybody walking around that, I wouldn't walk around that truck. But I have to guess that poor Maria probably strayed too close to the, you know, it was on a chain, and there's a radius of how far the animal can go. And a lot of times, you know, with chained animals, you can see the radius where they're digging and clawing. So it's like a line. But I mean, she probably, you know, she's 9 years old. And you got to protect the kids. And obviously, from what I've read and what I've surmised, it just seems like very negligent behavior. But you know, back in the 50s, it's not like today. OSHA was not a factor in that circus down here in Arkansas, I can guarantee you that. Anyway, what's interesting is, or horrifying, is that would be the least of their problems. Well, it's really the first problem. The second problem really was crazy, because when they had left, it had started to pour. And I'll tell you, in this country here, when it rains, and they get some, well, a lot of places in the country, you get some crazy rain. But man, it was a downpour. And I know from doing some hiking down here and being on the back roads that it has, from what I remember, maybe not right here, but probably, it has more of a clay, tackier, you really can get stuck really easy around here more than other places in the country. It's just, it sucks you in. So they're flying along with the caravan, the convoy, and one of the trucks flips over. Big deal. No big deal, right? Yeah, big deal. Because the truck had probably some of the most exotic animals inside. And those animals would include a polar bear. It had there was a polar bear, there were a couple of lions, not lions, but like cheetahs, they were leopards. And I think they had some monkeys, a couple of black bears. So it was probably the worst truck of any, because of course it busted up and all these animals got out and they were running loose. Now here's a vet Arkansas, Private Abner F. Fagan. And again, I'm going to pause the story. I'm just walking along here. I see flags down too. We'll take care of that. But I am guessing, I don't know, is this Arkansas Private 71st of Escort Company, 1926. So is this a Confederate, or is this got to be Confederate, right? We're in Confederate territory, I believe, but we do have an American flag, and we have a Confederate flag. And listen, I'm not taking sides, but I'm being respectful for the people. I mean, I am taking sides, you know what I mean. The slave, that's all wrong. But, history is history. And as I'm doing this, it really makes me mad because people are trying to rewrite history and take these statues down. That's a whole nother subject, but I'm gonna obviously respect both flags here and respect the man. We don't, it's the history of our country. So, all right, that's better. Sorry about the wind, guys, but I'm here, and it's now or never passing through. And I hope the wind is not too bad. There's another American flag over here, and that looks like it's in good shape. So yeah, these animals got out. It was on Highway 270. It was about 7:30 in the morning, and they said there was a passing bus driver who said that he saw the polar bear and amongst the other animals, and it looked like it was injured, sadly. And that's one other thing I'll mention is, actually from my Arctic adventures and expeditions for 20 years, I have a lot of experience, well, a couple of experiences with polar bears up close that I didn't want. Twice stalked. One was really close. It's another, but it had to be super abusive to have a polar bear here in the south central country of part of our country in captivity. And I'm not going to get into it, but just the climate alone, and God knows what they were feeding it and how they were handling it. You can only imagine the abuse that was going on with the animals. Well, again, it was the 50s. Different time. But yeah, the polar bear was injured, and these animals are running loose in the woods. And unfortunately for the animals, we're in Montgomery County, and this whole area, as it is today, is home to a lot of very heavily armed hunters who are all anxious and willing to shoot their guns. Nothing wrong with that, but not for the animals. Sheriff Wilburn Tidwell of Mount Ida, east of here, coming through there, he organized a large posse to track down these animals. And like I said, it didn't seem like anyone was making any efforts to capture the animals alive. They were blasting away. So I guess you could call it a special hunting season. Now, luckily, one of the black bears, at least, was quickly retrieved by his handler. And later in the day, the circus owners buckled down and they offered a $200 reward trying to get the shooting to stop. And it didn't really work. That polar bear was worth $800. Imagine what that polar bear would be worth today. And again, just a little note of the Arctic being up there. You cannot today, now I'm against, they still hunt the polar bear, but I think it's been 10 or 15 years now, maybe longer, don't quote me, where we have laws. You cannot bring even a polar bear rug or hide across the border. It is flat illegal. So if they go up there from the U.S. to hunt it, they can't bring it back. And the local Inuit, it's going on. But I just thought it was interesting that the polar bear is worth, well, $800 in those days, in the 50s. What's that worth today? $3,000 or $5,000, whatever it is. I mean, I don't care about, you know, if I get the amount right, I'm just pulling that out of my hat, but it would be worth, I think if there was a live polar bear in the zoo, what's that worth? 50,000 bucks? My, how times have changed. It's a nice crucifix here. Cemetery's in fantastic shape. Well, you could probably expect that it wasn't very long before the animals started going down, and the first animal killed was a leopard. It was shot within 150 yards of the accident site, so it went down quick. And, well, it had come to the roadway, hanging out, prowling around. A state trooper named Clarence Montgomery and posse members John Dunaway of Pencil Bluff. Again, I passed through Pencil Bluff from the east here. It's a ways, so they came over from a ways. And a guy named Lem Chambers of Odin, another town east of here, quote unquote, loosed a volley which killed the animal instantly, according to the Arkansas Gazette. The most dramatic confrontation involved a single hunter. His name was Royston Fair, and he had dogs running, a couple of dogs. I think there's bear here. Tell me if I'm wrong. We're Ouachita National Forest still. It's massive. Anyway, there's got to be black bears running. Or cats. Maybe they were running cats. Mountain lion? I haven't done my homework on that, and just kind of ad-libbing here, thinking, but I bet he's running those dogs after mountain lion or bobcats. I do know there's a lot of bobcats here, but they're not usually running dogs after them. They're trapping them. But anyway, he had a unnerving confrontation. One of his dogs was killed. Typically what they'll do is they'll corner the cat, and the cat will go up the tree. Basically what happened was killed one of the dogs, and even though he shot it, probably had it cornered, the leopard came at him, and he had to use his rifle like a club to kill it, smashing it. Now, you can imagine the scene. There was another guy, Matt Singleton, who was a stockman, and he was living east here, Odin, and he killed a polar bear within a single shot. And let me tell you, the great white hunter, right? Now imagine in these woods in October, leaves are falling, and then there's a white bear. It's like when I was in the Arctic, when they came stalking, it was Arctic summer in the tundra. I could see them 2 miles away. So imagine that was a pretty easy kill. A beautiful sign here, old-fashioned. This looks original. So he killed the polar bear, and what's funny was they, of course, dressed out the polar bear and got all the meat, and they're handing it out to all the guys, and everybody's like, "Yeah, this tastes terrible." Well, polar bear, I don't know how polar bear tastes, but anyway, it was pretty funny because in my, just reading the story, one of the guys tasted it, and he was like, his name was Billy John Ballantyne from Pencil Bluff, and the way he said it, he didn't like it. He said with a drawl, "It was the sorriest meat I've ever put in my mouth." Well, we're at the grave of Maria right here. Maria De Campa. It's a very small stone, and I want to give the shout out again to Cheryl Daggs. She was here to help locate the grave. She knew about it. She made a special trip to come back here to make it easy on me. Took pictures, and I am betting those poinsettias might be from her, maybe not. But thanks, Cheryl, and thanks for the lead. 2 golden stories, these episode 3 and 4 here in Arkansas, came from Cheryl. But here we are. Let's take a close look at the stone. It looks like a newer stone. I know, 1951, maybe now it's granite. I mean, that could be the original stone. But I think it's really cool that the people here, the locals, they didn't know her, but they all came out. There was a lot of emotion, just imagine. But the circus just moved on. You would think they would have, well, a little more information. We do have a surviving picture that is purported to be her sister, and I will show that picture right now. It is part of the circus poster, and Cheryl had pointed that out to me. So we can imagine that Maria probably looked very similar. There is no picture we could find of Maria. If anybody can find her picture, wow, I don't think one exists. Even in the 50s, well, the 50s you would think, but anyway, the family, all the kids, they all went on to keep performing, and of course in the wintertime they would retreat back to Texas, and that was their lives. And I did find out, Deb let me know. I think Tricia was helping, I can't remember, but thanks to both you guys that Bertha Campo Flores, her caretaker, or it may have been her mother, lived to be 90 years old. So that's the story, guys, from Mena Arkansas. Quite a sad story. But again, when a story really intrigues me, and for a lot of different reasons, I really am drawn to come and see their grave. I brought a flower for her, and we'll try to put it next to the poinsettia. The yellow flower, you know, guys. There we go. From Mena, Arkansas, we're going to be heading out of here. I'm heading to Texas now. Dallas is my next stop. So I'll see you guys there. We're going to be running these one after the other. And I'm glad you're on the adventure with me, because this is an adventure and it's fun. It's intriguing. You see the country, everything. I haven't been down this far south, and I'm impressed. I have to tell you, Arkansas, I said it before, it's an underrated state. It is absolutely beautiful. That said, we will say goodbye to Maria, and we hope she's resting in peace. May she rest in peace. All right, see you guys on the next stop.